What's going on, everybody? And earlier today, I read an article on Screw Attack, and after reading this article, I was really frustrated, and I couldn't believe the stuff I was hearing. The article was about an interview that Nintendo president Reggie Fils-Aime had with this site called Recode. I think re/code. That's what the Screw Attack article says. So, but there were a lot of things that Reggie was talking about here that just really baffled me. And I'm going to take some of the quotes here, then I'm going to give you my thoughts on the stuff he was saying. So, he was addressing Nintendo's lack of a Call of Duty game on one of their home consoles for the first time in years. And here's what he said. I would love to have Call of Duty on our platform. I would love to have any of the big blockbuster multi-platform game titles. Well, what I have to say to that is, then why don't you have them? If you would love to have them, as you're stating right here, Reggie, and as you stated back in 2012 at E3, talking about how important getting support from third parties, along with having Nintendo games, was very important to the Wii U's lifespan, I have to ask, you would love to have them, why don't you? It's a good question. It's a very good question. He continues by saying, but I have to say more specifically, I want games that provide a differentiated consumer experience. If you look at the other two competitive platforms, he's talking about Microsoft and Sony, fundamentally, what's the difference?
You neutralized Zone B.
Really?
Zone A lost. Heavy ammo
Really? I can't believe he said that. He said that there's no difference between PlayStation 4 and Xbox One.
Heavy ammo available.
And I'm assuming he's also talking about PS3 and 360. Maybe he's just talking about the companies rather than just the two newer systems. But I'll just stick with the two newer systems. But really? Really? There's no difference? Hey, I own both the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. Oh, there's a pretty big difference between the two. The UI interfaces are different. Both have their exclusive titles. The controllers are different. The actual systems themselves are designed differently. Yeah, I could go on about how they are different, but he's basically talking about how since they share third-party content, that it's the same thing, which is the logic there just is fundamentally flawed, in my opinion. But let's continue. Reggie said that the argument for multi-platform titles comes down to what is more visually appealing rather than different experiences. Funny thing is that what he doesn't understand here is that most of the visual arguments here is not done by the actual developers and the companies. It's mostly just done by the fanboys in the fanboy wars that constantly go on day after day. That's what he doesn't really get here. But anyway, Reggie says, interestingly, when you look at either one, either by themselves doesn't have a lot of exclusive content. That's not true. They have a lot of shared content. Look at it from the standpoint of what don't they have? They don't have our games. They don't have Mario and Zelda. I'd much rather be where Nintendo is, with a differentiated platform, differentiated set of experiences that we can provide uniquely to the consumer. Let the other guys battle it over which visual representation of Call of Duty is more compelling. I like our chances of having a differentiated console and a differentiated series of experiences. And oh my god.
Zone A neutralized. Zone B.
I hate to be that guy. I hate to be that guy, but yeah, you know, you're right. Microsoft and Sony, they don't have Mario and Zelda.
Enemy captured Zone B.
But do you really want me to sit here for hours and basically say what Nintendo doesn't have? I mean, give me a break. Yes, Microsoft and Sony don't have the first-party Nintendo games and
Zone
Nintendo
A
characters.
neutralized.
But I could go on for hours with what games Nintendo doesn't have. Hell,
Zone A
there was a video that was put out there that this guy made. He listed, what was it, 159, I believe? Don't quote me on that, but what was it, 159 titles that will not be on Wii U, but will be on Microsoft and Sony and PC? I mean, really? Oh,
Zone
yeah,
B
that
neutralized.
yeah. Unless he thinks
Zone
that
B.
Mario and Zelda are these one-of-a-kind experiences that you will never get anywhere else, I don't see how those two games match up to over 150 different titles. That's just me, though. And I'm not knocking Mario and Zelda when I say that, because I've been a gamer since the late 80s. Late 80s, early 90s is when I started gaming. And I grew up on Nintendo. I love Mario. I love Zelda. And as much as I love those games, they're just fun games. They're not these like holy experiences that I've never been able to get from any other game ever.
Secure.
Yeah, so yeah, you take that for what it is. But, you know, over 150 titles, that's a lot of stuff that Nintendo is missing out on.
Zone B lost.
That's a pretty important point to make. But he also said that it's a differentiated platform, differentiated setup experiences that provide unique experiences. Once again, I go back to my earlier point. Yes, there's Nintendo games that are fun as hell to play. But I just don't get where these one-of-a-kind, holier-than-thou experiences come from. Now, see, if I was a kid, yeah, definitely I would look at things like that. Because that's what kids think. They think everything that looks cool is like this amazing experience. But what Reggie and even Nintendo to an extent doesn't understand is that not every gamer is a kid. There's a lot of adult gamers like myself, and most of us, we don't look at games, or at least I don't look at games in that kind of light. I look at games as that they're fun to play, that they look cool, they're fun to play, they're exciting. I don't look for these holier-than-thou experiences. I don't. And I can't get that really from any game, even today. And I don't see how, honestly, Nintendo really provides those things. I mean, because let me ask you, what is it about Nintendo games that provide those unique, one-of-a-kind experiences? I have to ask. Because Mario's a great platformer. There's also fun platformers that I've played on Microsoft and Sony systems. Zelda is an awesome action-adventure hack-and-slash game. I've played awesome adventure games on Sony and Microsoft, and I've played good hack-and-slash games on Sony and Microsoft. The only thing I can really honestly see that is really unique to Nintendo is the characters. But what a lot of people in Nintendo, once again to an extent, fail to understand is not every person is interested in every single Nintendo character. I mean, me personally, even back when I was a kid, I didn't like every Nintendo franchise. I've never really been a big fan of Kirby. And aside from Yoshi's Island, I've never been a huge fan of Yoshi. And I could go on with, I wasn't interested in every single Nintendo franchise. I wasn't interested in every single Nintendo product that came out. Like, the Virtual Boy was garbage. The Power Glove was garbage. They did garbage stuff.
Zone
So,
A neutralized.
I mean, I have to ask, and you know what, maybe you guys might disagree with me,
You
and that's fine,
neutralized
but I just
Zone
don't
B.
see where these holier-than-thou, one-of-a-kind, unique experiences come from. Because honestly,
C
I just
lost.
see them as
5
fun
minutes
games
remaining.
to play.
You
That's
captured
it.
Zone B. Enemy captured Zone C.
And
Zone
another
A
thing Reggie was talking about
secure.
here is the visual representation of Call of Duty is most compelling. See, he keeps talking about visuals, and that's all it seems like Microsoft and
lost.
Sony care about. Well, you know, it's easy to say that when your system is not as powerful as the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. And because I'm going to go on a limb here and say that I bet you if Nintendo had the most powerful console out there, I guarantee you
captured
they
Zone
would
B.
be promoting the hell out of how awesome their games look on it. Because what is wrong with games that look good? What is wrong with that? I mean, tube TVs have been replaced by high definition televisions. DVD players replace VCRs, which then Blu-ray players kind of replace DVD players. It's not really the fact that we just care about it and it's not really that important. It's also called moving on with the times. And hell, Nintendo themselves eventually had to give in and do it themselves by making an HD console,
You
by
neutralized Zone
having
B.
a,
Zone C lost.
I guess, somewhat stabilized online network.
You captured Zone B. A single victory doesn't win
It's
a
not
war,
really about
but
being
it's a
like a
good start.
graphics whore
Good
or anything like that. It's called moving on with the times. And even let me ask you guys who may be big Nintendo gamers who love Nintendo, wouldn't you want their games to look the best they possibly can? Do you really want to settle for the bare minimum just for the hell of it? No, I want all these games on all platforms to look the best they possibly can be. What's wrong with that? I mean, really, what's wrong with that? So, anyway, back to the interview. Reggie also said that third-party companies want is a large install base to sell their games to with a wide demographic footprint that they can target their games to. They also want a robust, connected environment so they themselves can explore downloadable content or digital sales. Yeah, that's a good point. Third-party companies want a large install base to sell their games to. But the ironic thing about that statement is Nintendo's the one that basically hurt a lot of third-party relationships. Yeah, I mean, it's a cold, hard truth, but they did. A lot of third-party developers don't care for Nintendo. Because Nintendo pushed them away because for years, Nintendo shunted third-party developers as being unimportant. That we don't need you because we can make our games. Well, guess what? I never understood what is wrong with having large third-party support in your console. What is wrong with that? I mean, wouldn't you want the most possible games on your console for gamers to choose from? I mean, let's look at it this way. Would you rather buy a console that has 10 games on the shelf or the console that has 20? Yes, you might have more quality games with the 10. That's a possibility. But the only way to find that out is by playing those games. You see, having the most games to choose from is more appealing to the consumer. And that's one of the main reasons why a lot of people are not going to choose the Wii U as their only console to game on. Because they don't have that third-party support. that huge game selection that Sony and Microsoft does. And yes, I know the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One don't have a big library right now, but keep in mind, they're almost, this month, both those systems will be a year old. And in my opinion, I think they have done a great job with the amount of games that are on both systems. And guess what? They're just going to continue to grow. Whereas Nintendo's, they're not going to get as many games. So in the long run, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One will have more games to choose from than the Wii U. And why is that? Because of third-party support. And I've said this before, third-party support and indie games, and Sony's done a great job with indie games. I don't mean to derail the subject a little bit, but they've done a great job with indie games and indie support. Because third-party games and indie games, they're the lifeblood of this industry. There's more of those games out there than exclusive titles. So, wouldn't you want to cater to those people? Which is the majority of the video game industry? Because last time I checked, that's what Nintendo is in. The video game industry. Not the Nintendo industry. The video game industry. So wouldn't you want to cater to those people? I mean, I would. I would definitely want to cater to those people. So let's scroll down here and... Is that it? Yep, that's about it. I got the last part of the interview, so... Anyway, so... Let me know what you think, because honestly, reading stuff like this frustrates me about the direction Nintendo goes in, and what the people that work for them say in these interviews. Because I distinctly remember, Reggie at E3 2012 talking about the future of the Wii U, and how they were going to get third-party support, and how important third-party support was, and how important it was to have that along with the exclusive Nintendo games, have the best of both worlds, so to speak. And look at where we are today. The Wii U, pretty much, the game selection is pretty much dry as hell unless you're a Nintendo fan. And what hardcore Nintendo fanboys, what they don't understand is that not every gamer loves every Nintendo game. You need to have that choice. And Nintendo's not providing it, in my opinion. So, anyway, let me know what you think, and I will see you all later.